of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, everywhere you listen to podcasts, and now on YouTube. If you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to check out the other video. We're going to be talking all things Moon Knight, maybe some Doctor Strange predictions. You have to find it to let's talk some baseball. Joining me right here, Alec Argento, my guy, the lone designated hitter, here to talk all things Yankees, Mets, and how proud he is of his team in pinstripes.
Sup? What's going on?
What? I forgot to actually say hello. What is up, bro?
Nothing. I'm beaming right now. I just got back from vacation. I got Doctor Strange tickets tomorrow. The New York Yankees were on an 11-game winning streak before getting screwed by the umps tonight. I don't want to be that guy, but I mean, Aaron Boone came out screaming, hotter than I've ever seen before. So, I mean, clearly something was going on. But mostly I'm just upset that Drew's not here because Drew has been the most salty of Yankee fans I've ever seen in my life. And if you could look at my screen here, it says that Drew's not allowed to the parade when we win at the end of the year. So that's how I'm feeling. But reeling about the Yankees, man. I'll take a tough luck loss today when it's coupled with an 11-game winning streak before that.
All very fair. I too am upset that Drew is not here. He's been just full of hot takes lately, a lot of which go against his normal calm demeanor, his normal optimism. And honestly, I think we're both a little concerned for his well-being because we don't know who hurt him, but all the things that he seems to love in the world outside of Star Wars, I think Star Wars is scot-free for now. But the Yankees
today's May the 4th.
That's a great point. Yankees are pissing him off. He wasn't loving Moon Knight that much, and we'll get into that later. And even like he's like rooting for the Mets more than he is the Yankees. The Rangers lost. He's not a happy camper, but he's not even here to defend himself. So I guess that's where we have to leave it.
Yeah, I guess one thing to note is that I've been extra salty against the Mets lately because of Drew. So any hot takes you're going to be hearing from me, you can blame that on Drew because they're getting ricochet shots because I can't let the Mets fans have been waiting a long time to chirp as much as they have want to right now, being arguably the best team in baseball. But they're arguable because the Yankees are number one. So it's tough when the only team that's better than you is Big Brother. So, I mean, I'm just going to go at them, and I know they want to say a lot, but they can't say anything yet.
Yeah, it's very frustrating as said Mets fan who's so happy to be here right now that I was getting all this hate in chat between you, myself, and Drew, and I felt like the Mets hate wasn't even directed at the Mets fan in the chat, aka me, but I still felt it. I was an innocent bystander just getting victimized left and right, and I did not like it. But let me tell you this, Alec, the Mets have not lost a series yet. Have we won every series? No, we technically just split a 4-game series with the Braves, but we have not lost a series yet. LeVar Ball never lost.
I mean, there's nothing to be upset about yet, right? I mean, that's fine. You can celebrate the Mets all you want. One thing I'm not listening to is Yankee slander right now. I don't know how you could. I don't know how you could say, oh, it's just, they're playing crappy teams until they're not playing crappy teams, or, oh, it's just April until it's May and they're doing it. It's all these things. It's okay to celebrate both of them right now. Maybe it won't last. It's a long season. There'll be ups and downs. But what you saw in the past month plus now is that these two teams are capable of being awesome, and you got to feel good about that. When was the last time that the Yankees and the Mets were both the best team in New York in the sport, right? It's just not. The last thing I can remember is 2001. And I don't even think records-wise that was the case. So.
Where were the Yankees at in 06 when the Mets were in NLCS,
Yeah, it's usually one or the other. Right? It's usually one or the other.
It's true, and that's why it is such a great time in New York. And realistically, for all the times that Mets fans and Yankee fans argue, so often the Yankees are on top and the Mets are punching up. They're punching from below. And then there was this point in time, especially preseason chatter, which I feel like drives a little bit of the angst with the Yankee fans in regards to the Mets, where it's like, oh, it's the Mets town now. They're the team to beat in New York, and all this stuff that I, as a Mets fan, don't like because it makes me nervous and I don't trust ourselves. But it happened, and it wasn't completely unreasonable to think in reality, in theory. In reality, the Yankees are still the big brother. They still hold the upper hand. And until they don't win 90 games in a season every freaking year. Like, you can't really argue it too much. Now we can have a serious debate that's talked out with detail about which team we think is stronger, which pitching staff is A, 1A, 1B, because that's really where they are right now. It's almost no debate that they're 1A, 1B in the league, right? But those are real conversations. The not so real conversations that are built off fandom, that are built off hatred for one another and this competitive nature, those are the ones where it's like, I think Mets got ahead of themselves because the Yankees had this weird offseason that even Yankees fans weren't hyped about. And I tried to tell all y'all the whole time, this is still a good team. This is still a really good team.
You're saying this to me as if I didn't during the season preview say that I felt good about the team. I was the one here who was the voice of reason here, saying that, you know what,
Sure.
the team looks better. They had Anthony Rizzo. They had, coming in with breaking up the lefties and righties, getting more contact hitters, the rotation being incredible, knowing that the bullpen was incredible. And guess what? Everything was right about the Yankees. So listen, it could very well change. Could very well change for any team in the league. Do I expect the Red Sox to be like, fighting for last place in the division? Probably not. Maybe, I don't know. But the season's long and things do have their ebbs and flows. But it's fine to celebrate either team right now and feel good about it, right? You don't have to say that they've won the championship or anything like that, even though I'm joking about it with my tag under here with the parade and everything. But it's okay to feel good about things right now and not have to wait for the other shoe to drop, because the other shoe will drop for both teams at certain points. They will go on a 6-game losing streak or something like that. But they have shown that they are different teams than they were. They're capable of being different teams than they were in the past, right? They're teams that kind of don't let up, and that, I know this sounds kind of weird, but I always look at the 2009 Yankees as my barometer for a team when they have the magic, right? Which is no matter how much they're down at whatever point in the game, I still feel like they can come back. And I feel like the Mets and the Yankees right now both have that kind of magic, right? They're not out of any game. Yankees were, had bases loaded in the ninth. They were down to the last play was the game in that game. So it's like any game they can come back from. They don't take their foot off for the third game of a series or the fourth game of a series. If they can go for the sweep, they're going to go for it. They don't just back down and move on to the other city, and celebrate that, because these teams have not had that in a long time. And the biggest thing that I've said for the past 5 years or so is that the Yankees' biggest rival has been April, right? And that's a huge thing for them now to come out of the gates hot. How I've been saying this as long as we've been doing this podcast, you can't win a championship in April, but you certainly can lose it. And that's what looks like the Red Sox right now, right? The Yankees are usually in that Red Sox position where they're down 8 games or something like that, and they'll chip away and they'll get within 3 games at certain points of the season, but you just know that it's not their season to take the division. So you feel good about it for both teams. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about it, because I think people are nervous to do so right now.
It's a great point by you. And that April thing, I think I actually ended up bringing it up specifically in the preview podcast, because you always bring it up and you hadn't to that point. And I was like, Alec, you say this every year. You can't win in April, but you can lose. And now, granted, the Yankees had this 10, 12 game win streak now in April into May. Fast forward like a month or two, and this is kind of in the history. That's a base that they haven't had. Yep. So if they go on another 10-game win streak or 9-game win streak, that just exponentially pushes them ahead of the pack. Whereas the 9-game win streak they went on in years past just helped them climb back to a competitive level. And that's where the big difference comes in, because you really do see it in every sport, except like even in basketball, football, all major sports, that slow start, that 0-4 in football. How many times did you hear, oh, only 2 teams in the history of the NFL have made the playoffs after this type of start? In the NBA, oh my God, this team's in the 11 seed month into the season. Yeah, can they get back to the 5? Sure. Can they get back to the 4? Maybe. Are they going to be now in a position of home field advantage?
Playing catch up the whole year.
Exactly. Now that's a huge win. On the Mets, on the other hand, they haven't specifically had a 10, 12 game win streak, and they're just consistently winning series. And now I joked before, they still haven't lost a series. They split with the Braves in the 4-game set. That is another great sign of a winning team. And it's very different from the Yankees' previous stretch here, but it's the fight that you're talking about. It's the consistency that you're talking about. And realistically, it's the ability to hang in multiple styles. Last year, when they were early and winning, it felt like they were just flying by the seat of their pants, winning
Yep.
lucky games late, not with big time hits, with more, just haphazard stuff happening. This year, there seems to be purpose, there seems to be plans, and it's consistent throughout a series, which is leading to multiple victories within each series to this point. And that's something that, as a fan, it's like it's a different universe to the lineup day and feel a semblance of confidence, to look at the rotation and have confidence, 1 through 4, really 1 through 5 to this point, and we don't even have our best pitcher. So right now, you're right. There's no reason to feel terrible, but that doesn't mean there's no reason to point out some negatives or some things that need to be worked on, because those things definitely exist too. The
Yeah.
frustration still exists for Yankees fans, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's frustrations on both sides, I'm sure. But I mean, you look at the standings right now, and you look at the Mets, like they have their issues and whatnot, but they're also 4.5 games ahead of Miami. They're 6 games ahead of Atlanta. They're the defending champs, and 6 games ahead of Philly right now. So they can have warts right now, but every team's still figuring it out, and that's why it's so important to have that kind of baseline foundation that we were talking about now. So you can. You can look at players like, Brian McCann sucking or something like that. It's fine. It's okay to have a player like that when you have afforded yourself the ability to deal with things like that, right? And have the depth to handle things. And the most important thing I think with getting these hot starts is that, especially for the Mets, because they're a new team, pretty fundamentally from top to bottom, is that you now know what your ceiling is, right? And then you will not be, sometimes you find out what your ceiling is 3-4 months into the season when you go on your first big win streak or whatever, and then it's too late. But if you know you're capable of this, and then you have the right people in the locker room, you have a Max Scherzer type of guy in the rotation or whatever it is, or like for the Yankees, what we think Josh Donaldson is, in the clubhouse and all that stuff. You can what you can expect out of your team and out of yourself, and now that's your baseline going forward, right? So instead of searching for that and figuring it out, you have established that going forward, so that you know that you can get out of those times when you have that 6-7 game losing streak or whatever it is.
And another thing too, which has been big for both squads, is what they're doing against divisions. Their divisions, I should say. So not, the NL East isn't exactly holding up their end of the bargain, because before the season, you looked at the AL East, you looked at the NL East, and you said these are 2 of the 3 best divisions in baseball. Obviously, counting the NL West probably being, if not number 1. You can really debate on where they all rank. Right now, the Mets are 9-5 against their division, and the Yankees are 10-6 against their division. And that's not like the craziest winning percentage of all time. The Yankees are chewing up the Central right now. The Mets are much they took out the Diamondbacks and the Giants so far, 7-3 against the NL West. So, but going against the division and beating them is so huge early in the season. And we talked about this when we did a short segment recently. Beating the Diamondbacks for the Mets is nice right now, but beating the Braves, beating the Phillies, beating the Nationals is a necessity, because that's the stuff that really comes back to bite you down the road when you're talking about, not winning a season in April, but losing one. If you drop games, it happens. If you drop games in division, they're even harder to climb back on later on. And that's been absolutely huge. Now, I want to hop over to the Yankees first. I want to talk about them first, because we'll get to the Mets. And I feel like the Mets almost been more talked about early, and then over this past stretch, we haven't been on talking Yankees since they went on this winning streak. So let's get to them. From the first week of the season, Al, for a lot of fans, and definitely wasn't you, so you do deserve credit, a lot of fans were just complaining about all sorts of things. Lineups, Boone again, black holes in the words of or in terms of Joey Gallo and Hicks and Kiner Falefa and Higashioka and all these guys who aren't hitting. What was the key for that overturn? Because it wasn't like you guys came right out of the gates on fire. It took a few weeks, and some of those guys are flipping back to reality, or back to the back of their baseball cards. So what was the turning point really for you, and this streak really started to take to something big?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think the biggest thing is that this was a very shortened spring training after a very shortened offseason because of the strike. I mean, not the strike, the union meetings and everything. But that should not go unaccounted for. Offense has been down in baseball significantly. The team, like the Yankees, that were just, coined as the worst offense, and they have no offense, they're not going to be able to hit, now have the most 8+ run games, winning games in the league right now. So that's a huge part of it. Additionally, the Yankees have a very, very unique team with a lot of different pieces that you have to plug and play. Boone today was the first day that we had a lineup card that was the same as another lineup card that we've had. Figuring out where people go when you have a lot of new players and a lot of players that haven't played in like a year and a half or 2 years, like Severino or Hicks or whatever it is, like that takes a lot of work to figuring it out. But once you get it right, you have the pieces, and getting it right in the first place is difficult because you have so many variables to it. But now you have a piece now where you know that, okay, we're going to get DJ LeMahieu leading off because DJ LeMahieu looks right again. Let's keep him there. Let's keep Aaron Hicks not at like batting ninth or anything like that. And we're going to keep him at the lower end of the order, but still he's going to be there to clean up some players and to get on base when we need to and not have a dead end. Additionally, everyone was complaining about Isaiah Kiner Falefa. The guy's leading, he's like the 4th highest batting average in baseball right now. Some people just need to this team needed to gel a little bit. They needed to know what they were. And when you have a team that complements each other, I think what everyone really wanted was a team of guys that just hit a shit ton of home runs, right? That's clearly not worked for us in the past. There was a reason they moved on from that, right? There's a reason that they got someone like an IKF and a DJ LeMahieu on the same team and an Aaron Hicks, because they're not guys that are home run or bust. But it allows someone like a Joey Gallo to, you can hide him, right? You can hide him and then use the strength of the fact that he is a lefty and breaks up your lineup significantly to your advantage and absorb if he hits 180 like he is right now, or if he's hurt for a couple of days. So I think that's what kind of changed the pace of the thing, because the Yankees rotation has been unreal since the start of the season. Their bullpen has been unreal since the start of the season. You have 3 guys right now. And again, I know that this is a ridiculous comment, but like from if the season ended today, you'd have 3 guys that are in Cy Young voting between Severino, Cole, and Cortez. I don't expect that to last. And then in addition to that, you have Montgomery and Tyone, who have been fantastic too. And you knew you were going to have the best bullpen in baseball going into it. So like you knew your strengths, everything's clicking. And then on top of that, I probably shouldn't throw this out there to the baseball guys, but this is the healthiest the Yankees team's ever been in the past 5 years. They went into the season incredibly healthy, and they've had 1 injury so far that has been minor, and he's already back in the lineup. So what do we always say about the Yankees? Like on paper, they're good until they get hurt. And right now they're not hurt. And you have someone like Judge who betted on himself and is in a contract year. Is probably going to go make a crazy contract and go play somewhere else. But he's going to be in the MVP voting at the end of the season. So everything's clicking. You can absorb things with the roster construction that they have. And it just took, it's not even like it took a lot of time. It took like a week and a half for everything to start going for the Yankees. So I don't know. This is what I was kind of saying from the beginning when everyone was playing doomsday for the team.
And I feel like there's been some sense, and obviously it's really hard to complain when you're winning as much. Yankee fans find a way. All fans find a way. But there's been less of a, oh my God, I can't believe he's not in the lineup today. Like I saw it a little bit for DJ when he wasn't in the lineup. I think it was 2 days ago now when this podcast comes out for the day game. And it's like, yeah, DJ should be in the lineup a lot. But everybody's getting off days, and it seems like the buttons are being pushed properly. Most, in fact, to what you're saying. And Aaron's hitting 300. Rizzo has 9 home runs already this year. He's almost 370 right now. Like that stuff is working out how it's supposed to. The pitching on the starters specifically, you had hope for them to be good. You had some reason. I don't want to say a lot of reason. You had some reason to believe they'd be really good. They've far surpassed expectation. And Garrett Cole came out so hot. About the pitching staff, it has jumped out to you specifically. Like, is it the fact that Nestor, as the whatever number you want to slot him in, is balancing out the rotation? Or do you think at this point it's just individual performance and those guys are stepping up to the plate? Well, to the mound.
I don't think that this is surprising to anyone. I think this is what we expected, right? Like I think the conceit of the question is kind of unfair because, Jameson Taillon was the best pitcher in baseball in the set, for the last 3 months of the season last year. He had to dust off the cobwebs and he was good to go. Nestor Cortez had a 2 ERA last year. I know that he didn't start as a starter, but he's in the rotation now. He's just doing what he did beforehand. this guy Garrett Cole, he might be something good. I don't know. Like I don't know what's going on with that guy. I never heard of him before, but like in all reality, he's a Cy Young favorite every year, you know. And then you have Luis Severino, who was our ace before we got Garrett Cole. So you have 2 aces on the team, and then you have a bunch of number 2s and 3s. You don't have a 4 or 5 pitcher on this team. That's going to set you up. So like I don't. Nobody was worried about this rotation going in outside of health. And again, it does remain to be seen because you don't know what Severino's like longevity is going to look like, or Tyone. I mean, these are guys that have lived on the IL for a long time, but you know, this doesn't surprise me at all. The only thing that the only thing that's surprising me right now with the team is Aaron Boone, because Aaron Boone is someone who I've been on his ass every day that he's ever been a Yankee manager except for 1 year, and he is hitting every button that he's supposed to be hitting. He is every bullpen pitcher is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Nobody's getting overworked. The lineups are working. Shifting people over in positions. That was one of the big things I said was going to be an X factor going into the season, was how do you make do with 9 position players fighting for 8 spots? He's doing it well, and you don't miss anybody out of the lineup, right? I think the most important piece is that Aaron Hicks with his switch hitting, and DJ LeMahieu with his bat, who can play all over the diamond, are getting as many at bats as possible, and he's doing that. DJ's been in pretty much every game, and Hicks has been in most every games. And then when you don't have that, you're able to have Judge and Stanton play the outfield. So like you have so many weapons right now, and Boone is doing exactly what you'd want him to be doing, and you can't question anything that he's doing, even when it's a little bit head scratching because it's yielding results, right?
Yeah, Hicks and Gallo were points of contention to start this year for the first couple weeks. Hicks obviously got the numbers up. He's walking so much, which is, as much as people want to poo-poo different stuff about baseball right now and the numbers and analytics, whatever, walking's good. You can't deny it. Walking's good, and when he wasn't hitting, he was walking. Now he's also hitting. It's a win-win. Gallo, on the other hand, you still look at the numbers and you want to throw up. He's walking a decent bit. His on-base percentage is almost 100 points higher than his batting average, but his batting average is 180, right? That's ugly. Is that something that is worrisome still? Now feel so good about the surrounding parts that the 180 doesn't bother you as long as you hope to see him get to 220 and the power to stay around.
Yeah, I mean, it bothers me. Like, who wants to see a crooked number like that on there? When you have to look at it every day. Part of it is the fact that, hey, he was out for like a week because he was hurt. He is hitting the ball a little bit better. He had a home run tonight in the loss, and that was nice to see. But this is what he is. He's not going to hit 300 a year, right? That's just not. But I need him to hit around 220 to 240 or something like that, and then walk the way that he's going to be walking. You want to see him doing well in Yankee Stadium too, right? You look at Anthony Rizzo and look at all his success. Like 6 of his 8 home runs or something like that have all been short porch home runs, which is what that's there for, right? That's why you want lefties on the team to take advantage of that. Gallo hasn't been taking advantage of things like that, but he should be, and hopefully it averages out, right? He's still played under half a full season with the Yankees yet, and maybe he just needs to get used to it. But I think also a big aspect of there's 2 big aspects to Gallo that I think are hopefully going to improve. One of them is that the balls have been deadened, clearly, with offense being down. But also another aspect is that it's still cold outside, right? Like it's not cold, but once it's July and August, I'm not worried about the Yankees hitting home runs. This is what they do. Teams usually struggle to hit home runs. Look at the Blue Jays right now. They're not hitting home runs or hitting the way that they should be, even though they're in second place. Once it gets warmer out, the balls are going to fly, and cheap fly balls for lefties in Yankee Stadium are going to yield a lot of home runs. So that's, it doesn't bother me as much because Gallo and like the catcher spot are the only positions truly not producing. So You could hide it. I know that there's like this sentiment out there, as Drew is a victim of this, that you need to have 1 through 9 that can hit. And they need to all be able to bomb home runs, and that'll create a winning team. The reality of the situation is it's all about lineup balance. It's not just about everyone hitting. It's about what it does to elevate other players, absorbing certain things, defense. Nobody's talking about the defense that the Yankees have had. The Yankees had one of the worst defenses in the league last year, and now they have one of the best because they got rid of players that were bad defensively and replaced them with good players. So that's the other side of the ball. It's really important.
Yeah, and to compare to the Mets for a second, we're not going to go to them yet. The Mets are a team, they're not hitting home runs yet. but they have basically the same amount of runs scored as the Yankees for the year. They're both just over 120, which is extremely high in the league. I think that's 1 and 2. That's 1 and 2 in the league, depending on if this ESPN page refreshed for today's games or not. They're literally 1-2. The Mets are doing without home runs, and it is because of lineup balance. And even though James McCann is a black hole like Higashioka is, and JD Davis isn't playing to the back of his baseball card, the balance is creating runs in other ways, and the Mets are being more aggressive in other ways, not just trying to hit home runs. On the Gallo front quickly, and we're going to put a loop in the Yankee stuff soon. The one thing I saw on Twitter that I kind of get, but I also think it's almost like a pointless argument. It's like, oh, Joey Gallo and the short porch don't matter because when he hits home runs, he hits bombs, so it doesn't matter. Right. And yeah, I get it. So, okay, then he's just going to hit bombs over the course of the year. This dude has a proven track record to hit a bunch of home runs. And I think it will balance out. And whether it comes in bunches or he sprinkles a couple here and there, he's going to be a guy that's going to swing games. And if you want to slot him in to the Gary Sanchez role that people like Drew had loved so much, maybe he's the Gary Sanchez of this lineup. And guess what? It's not that bad if he's going to actually deliver and get on base with the walk. So I think there's reason to be very, very confident. Now, let me just ask you this more specific. Wait, what do you got?
No, I think the important aspect of it is that we're not going to have this thing where we have to have Joey Gallo bat cleanup or something like that, which is not what they've been doing. They had him batting 7th today. And if you have him bat 7th and you understand where he is and you're not screwing up everything else, and then you give a little bit more lineup versatility at the bottom of the order, which it can help Isaiah Kiner-Falefa or something like that, really, really important to have that. I don't care. I mean, personally, I'd rather somebody who puts the ball in play than anything else. If he can walk at a 400 on base percentage and bat 180, then I don't give a shit. But he's not doing that. He's has an on base percentage of like 280 right now. So that's not the problem. But if he doesn't have the name attached like a Gary Sanchez did, where we had to put him into the 5 spot or the 6 spot or something like
right.
that means a lot.
Yeah, that's a great point. And let me play the Drew role here for a minute now, right? Let me put on my Drew hat and try to play the role of the people who are frustrated here. I mean, maybe he's on an island with that, but we'll see. So he's had arguments about this team poking holes where he can, and says he doesn't care because they're beating up on bad teams. They're doing what they're supposed to do. I still have issues with this lineup. I still have I don't have full trust in the rotation. When you hear heaps of negativity like that, what is your counter? Because clearly you and Drew have been butting heads on that front for weeks now.
Yeah, I wish the listeners could just see our text message chat. But I mean, I've had a counter for every one of those. It's just constantly moving the goalposts, right? If you just want to be salty about it because you didn't like the offseason moves, first of all, I want to pull up what I sent in the group chat. Maybe like yesterday or so. It was the wars of all the people that had just not produced the way that it was supposed to be doing. I'll pull it up in a second, but ultimately we have been performing a lot better than the players that we missed. And there's a lot of saltiness because we didn't get that Carlos Correa or that Trevor Story or that Corey Seager or whatever it is. Right now, Gary Sanchez, or as of yesterday, had a negative 0.2 WAR. Trevor Story also had a negative 0.2 WAR. Gio Urshela had a 0.3 WAR. Carlos Correa had a 0.4 WAR. Corey Seager had a 0.7 WAR. I'm not the biggest WAR fan, but if you want to look at early indications, it's a fair, reasonable stat. Josh Donaldson, who everyone thinks is underachieving right now, and maybe he is, has a 0.5 WAR. So already better than Trevor Story, Gary Sanchez, and Gio Urshela combined. IKF has a 0.6 WAR. Second on the losers list of only Corey Seager. Anthony Rizzo has a 1.1 WAR, and Freddie Freeman had a 0.8 WAR at the time. All of our players that we have right now fit our team well. Do you want a basketball team that has only people who can shoot 3-pointers, or do you want a team that is balanced and can do different things and have the right role players do it? That's what you have right now. So if you're going to be salty and you want to move the goalposts of saying, well, the pitching's great, but the offense isn't there yet. And then the offense comes and it's like, well, of course the offense is going to be good. They're healthy. That's always the question, is being healthy. Well, they're healthy and you can't blame them for that. You also can't blame a team for beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. We say that all the time. It's like one of the oldest adages in sports. Nobody's doing that with the Mets, and I don't think they should, because you're supposed to, you're taking care of business, and the offense is clicking on all cylinders. The pitching is hitting on all cylinders, and then the defense, which has been such a critical part, has been hitting on all cylinders. And you couple all that with the fact that Aaron Boone has been a good manager so far. That's hard for me to admit. If I'm admitting it, it must be really true, right? So there's nothing to complain about right now. There really isn't. Even tonight's loss, it was a bullshit loss because the ump was horrible the entire night and calling out Judge and Stanton the entire night for horrible pitches. But
you were due for a loss, frankly.
It happens. Yeah, it happens.
1-12 in a row.
Yeah. So it's not that big of a deal. But if you're complaining about this team, you got a big old dump in your pants. That's all I got to say.
It feels like to me, if you're really complaining still at this point, you're just expecting something to go wrong. That's what you're doing. You're not arguing for anything that's happened, for anything that's real to this point. You're arguing for something bad to happen in the future, that there's going to be a regression to what you believe is the mean, and you don't believe that they're playing at towards their mean right now. Or maybe they're playing a little bit above with the
sure, but the problem with that argument is that there are no statistics that would point to us getting lucky right now. We're not getting BABIP to death or anything like that. Our run differential is the best in baseball. Nothing would point to us having a regression. There will be probably some regressions. I'm sure Nestor Cortez will have one game where he gives up 6 runs in 2 innings, right? That will happen. It will happen for everyone. You always have your bad games, and you'll have your streaks and everything like that. But this is what the team should be on paper, right? That's it.
Yep.
And you should feel good about that. You should feel good that they're reaching their potential, right? And not have to look for any negativity and be jaded over past years.
Right. And I'm sure there's some crooked numbers in regards to like the Blue Jays run differential, which is negative right now, but they're still 16-10. Maybe part of the nerves for Yankee fans aren't just about their team, but the surrounding teams in Tampa and Toronto getting better as well and evening out the playing field, which is a more fair argument. But again, that in a vacuum or in the scope of what we're talking about, which is the Yankees specifically, it doesn't affect the Yankees. Yeah, it'll affect them head to head if the Blue Jays are now on a roll and they're playing each other. But in general, you could only control your own team, and they're playing to their potential right now.
But even the argument with the other teams in the division, I said this in the opener that we did for baseball season. The Blue Jays are an identical team to the Yankees, and so far they've been a worse team than the Yankees. They cannot hit with runners
from a pitching standpoint too.
Well, yeah, the pitching has been horrible for them, which is always the question mark for them. And last year it was better than it usually is. They obviously had Robbie Ray and whatnot, but the pitching's been garbage for them. And then on top of that, they have Yankee syndrome, which is they have a ton of big names who can hit individually but can't do it together, right? And that's shown by the fact that they can't hit with runners in scoring position. They can't do it, which has been an issue for the Yankees for the past 150 years that I've been, as long as I've been watching the Yankees, they haven't been able to hit with runners in scoring positions, except for championship years. They are an identity. Well, I mean, in the past, many in the 20 years, but they're an identical team to the bad parts of the Yankees over the past couple of years. They will win games. That's not a team that I am particularly scared of in the playoffs, to be honest with you. This reminds me of the old Blue Jays teams that were good with like Jose Bautista and Josh Donaldson, like Justin Smoke and all that. It's just home run or bust, and that's fine. But the Yankees have been home run or bust teams for forever, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You need a balanced lineup. So
there's a cap there for sure. And I actually liken the Phillies as well to the Yankees last year. And specifically what comes to mind is all these big bats, all these home runs that should be in the lineup, which haven't really been there for the Phillies. But the underlying issue as well is the defense. And Gleyber Torres not being at shortstop, or at least most, like he's playing there a couple times here and there, but him not being at shortstop and IKF being a legit shortstop makes a difference. Like, it's something that you want to overlook as a baseball fan. You're like, oh, defense, you'll just throw it together and you figure it out. But when you have a good one, you realize that it matters. And to do a cross-sport reference here, the Boston Celtics are a team that jumped to mind when you made the comparison. Like, do you want just a three-point shooting team? No, you need somebody to get to the rim. You need to get to the free throw line, and you need to play fucking defense. The Celtics are proving out why defense is so important in the NBA playoffs. And the Yankees, to this point, without Luke Voigt playing first base, without Gary Sanchez behind the dish, without Glaber at shortstop, man, they're proving that it helps out a little bit, doesn't it? These pitchers, the ERAs are ERAs. They get helped out a little bit by some good defense.
I mean, look at Anthony Rizzo. Again, I understand he's not Freddie Freeman.
Right.
Would I have liked Freddie Freeman? Sure. Anthony Rizzo is perfect for this team. Absolutely tailor-made for what this team needed. He saves so many runs at first base. He's like how Teixeira was. You throw anything, you sail it, he's catching it. You throw it 6 feet wide, he's catching it. And if you throw it in the dirt, he's getting it on a pick. That's exactly what the Yankees had missed with Luke Voigt. So Luke Voigt could be salty about the Yankees and all that, but like he wasn't a fit for the team, and he can go be on the IL with San Diego like he's doing right now. So you have like just having someone at first base who's a platinum glove fielder is like the biggest thing that the Yankees needed, and you couple that with a lefty bat who can hit for power and a sandwich between power hitters that are some of the best in baseball. Like he's the perfect fit for this team. It's like exactly perfect for what the team needed.
Yeah, very easy to poo-poo first base defense until you have a bad one. So I hear that. Yeah. And now let's move on to the Mets. Let's talk some Mets stuff here because it's a different type of conversation, but it's also a mostly positive conversation with some holes that you need to point out and you need to talk about. Though I must say, if you look at the Mets lineup now with Dom Smith coming around a little bit, it really, now that Robinson Cano got DFA'd, which is obviously a win for Mets fans because he didn't have it. And I was working the Fan 2 weeks ago. My guy Mike Fliegelman was hosting. Shout out to Fleegs. He was like, I think there's a reason that the Mets played Cano so much. And it makes so much sense, right? I hadn't really thought of it to that point. They need to make sure that he wasn't going to just roll out of bed and hit 280, right? Because there's a world where this guy who's 40 and washed up could still hit, because he always seemed like one of those guys where it didn't particularly matter how fast he could run and slow as hell, right? Or how quick twitchy he was just going to hit. Well, he wasn't. They played him a lot early in this season, and it didn't work out. And they made a decision, a strong one, and said, we're going to get $40 million player, whatever the hell his salary is, right? Which is a lot of teams wouldn't make that decision. They wouldn't just eat that money. So that tells you something, that the Mets are going in a winning direction at the right pace. But you look up and down the lineup after that, and as good as we felt about the Mets offense going into the year, it was largely in theory. Lindor was off a bad season. Alonso was off a lackluster season. Dom Smith didn't hit last year. McNeil didn't hit last year. All those plays. Marte has been average to this point, maybe a little below average. And Dom Smith's starting to get back up a little bit. But this is a lineup. This is a lineup now where every single day when you watch it come out, you say, okay, whoever's out, Escobar's out today. That's okay. Guess what? Yorme's a more than serviceable guy to come into the lineup. Or, Canna's out today. Janikowski has been phenomenal for this team. And the depth is serious. The strength numbers for the Mets is serious. And up and down this lineup, it's incredibly strong to this point. And that's without the home run. Right now, the Mets have 5 home runs from Alonso, 4 from Lindor, 3 from Nimmo, 2 from Marte. That's the only people with 2 or more. Like, you look at the Yankees, they got 9 from Rizzo, 9 from Judge, 5 from this guy. The Mets aren't even hitting home runs, and they're putting runs on the board. I think there's reason to believe this offense has higher bounds to reach, right? Is that crazy? If I want to be an optimist here, Al, would you push back and say that I'm being too much of an optimist, that this offense actually is already, occupying its full potential and there's not much more room to grow?
I don't know if it's their full potential. I don't think this team is built to be a home run hitting team. Right? That was kind of what we talked about early on in the season. That's fine, because what you really needed to have 2 players that are producing that like, it was similar to the Yankees with like DJ LeMahieu, but like Jeff McNeil and Francisco Lindor are producing is what that team needed, because they can hit to all sides of the field. They're versatile players. They're really good on defense. Well, more so Lindor. Lindor is fantastic on defense and everything like that. But having that confidence and having them in the middle of the lineup that's what's doing it for you. But nobody on that team is, outside of Pete Alonso, is someone who's going to get you 40 plus home runs. That's totally fine, though, because you have a ton of people there that are going to get you 20, 25 home runs. Those aren't power hitters, but those are good players that can hit the ball and run into one here and there. And that's what your lineup is filled with, right? And you have players like Starling Marte who are going to get better. that's just how it is. That talk about going back to the mean. It's not a regression to the mean, but improvement to the mean or whatever you want to call it. He's going to get better. You have players like that. JD Davis will probably start hitting a little bit more, and Lindor, I would worry a little bit about regressing to the mean just because of what we've seen for the past 2 years. He's had some bright spots and everything, but like if this is what the team is, which is what I think it is, that's also not a bad thing, right? It's not a bad thing for them to score this many runs with contact hitting. I think that people have lost. It's one of those things where, like, with modern analytics and exit velocity and how many home runs you're expected to hit, that people forget the art of making contact. And maybe you shouldn't build the lineup around it, but like if you have everyone making contact with the ball, good things are going to happen. If you're aggressive on the base pass because you have people making contact all the time, you're going to score runs. That's clearly what's happening. And there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? You don't have to just hit 3-run home runs or bust. You can build it. And I don't know, home run's always a rally killer, right? It's you want people to just constantly be passing the baton. That's always my way of thinking.
Yeah, and on the McNeil front specifically, because he's a guy that was so huge when this team was winning, playing good, because he is a sneaky power, but just dynamic hitter. And when he was slumping last year, it looked like he fell in love with the home run. To your point, right? Like, he's a guy who was never looked at as a 30 home run guy, and he had that year where he snuck into the 20s, or mid. I think he was even in the mid 20s that one year. Like, he probably got a little home run happy. And Todd Zeal pointed out beautifully on the broadcast 2 days ago, where McNeil had this long at bat where he fouled off. I think he fouled off 4 pitches in a row with 2 strikes, and he wasn't even looking to drive the ball on those pitches, but they were nasty sliders or they were filthy pitches where he was fighting them off. And he turned out not even to get a hit in that at bat. But seeing that from a guy like him who lives on being aggressive early in the count, he took that aggression early in the count to the full count in the year past, in last year, right? Now he's realizing, all right, let me get the approach right with 2 strikes and not go down swinging and really just ruin my numbers, ruin my season, ruin innings consistently. And that's just a huge thing. You could argue about philosophy. I know Eric Chavez is the hitting coach now. People liked Chili Davis and said that his approach was similar to Eric Chavez. Anyway, I don't know what it is, but clearly there's a newfound confidence and there's a newfound approach with this Mets team that is definitely clicking. And when you have solid throughout, it makes it a lot easier to be consistent, because you could deal with a Lindor 0 for 5. You can deal with Alonso 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts when you have McNeil and Kana and Marte on base. Brandon Nimmo, I mean, his health, talked about health for the Yankees. Brandon Nimmo being healthy at the top of this lineup is ginormous. I mean, this dude just doesn't swing at bad pitches. It's actually ridiculous. They make jokes now on the broadcast that there's a force field around his strike zone because it's impossible to make him chase. And I know he's a really hateable guy with his sprints after he gets walked, and he sprints around the base. That's when run. It's annoying. It's a little bit childish, but just from a pure talent standpoint, having him in the lineup at number 1 every day is huge. And, right now he's on base at 364. There's no reason to believe that on base can't get a little better if he starts hitting a little more too. Because, boy, I mean, how many better table setters are there in the league than Nimmo if he's hitting 270, 280?
I'm with you.
Even if you hate him.
I despise him. If he was on the Yankees, he would be the most hated player in the league. I guarantee you, if he was on the Yankees, he would be the most hated player in all of baseball, probably the history of baseball.
Yeah. So let's go on to the pitching for the Mets now, because obviously they've done all of this to this point without Jacob deGrom. Hasn't pitched a game yet. And you look through the starting 5 or starting 6, because Taiwan's been out of the lineup now after just a start or 2. Second start he got hurt. I mean, the worst ERA out of the bunch is Carlos Carrasco at 3.3. You got 2 2.6s, you got a 1.9 and a 1.9. I mean, you can't really ask for much more. The Tyler McGill consistency has been fantastic, but I really kind of want to focus on Carrasco, because Carrasco, even though he's probably the weakest link right now, has looked awesome for the Mets. And he's a guy where he was a swing player because you knew what he's been in the past, but there was no real reason to trust that he'd have that still in 2022. So in regards to a guy like that, Alec, I mean, he's a guy that you saw in battles with the Indians and that's like, or the Guardians, I'm sorry. Having a guy like that with nasty stuff who can pitch in deep into games, what does that mean to this rotation, especially looking forward to when DeGrom is back, or if and when he comes back, to have a Carrasco at that 3-4 slot who can be nasty?
I mean, to answer your question, it would mean a lot, right? That's the obvious answer there. Of course, it would be incredibly beneficial. You have an innings eater who can strike out people and not induce soft contact and everything like that. My one thing that I would say with the Mets is that's where I think you're going to see a severe regression to the mean with their pitching. Don't expect McGill to have that kind of season for the rest of the season. Don't expect Peterson or whoever they're throwing out there, Carrasco, Walker. I mean, look at Walker last year. Walker was an all-star going into the all-star break, obviously, and then afterwards he sucked. So I know he was hurt or whatever the case was, but this team, this rotation, the way that it exists right now, I don't expect, and granted, I don't think anybody expects them to have a sub-2 ERA going forward, right? Nobody expects that. But I think that, and I love Taijuan Walker. I liked him when he was on the Mariners, but I think that there's going to be a big regression halfway through the season for some of them. Not all of them. If Max Scherzer is healthy, Max Scherzer is going to be Max Scherzer. That's always the thing, right? Like, if he can stay healthy, which so far he has, there's no indication outside of his age that he will. And DeGrom coming back, DeGrom will be DeGrom. Every time he comes back from an injury, he always is. And we got good news on him. But to answer your question, Carlos Carrasco being good at the back end of the rotation, great. Of course, it's an awesome thing. I have no qualms with that.
You don't trust. You don't trust it per se.
This reminds me of last year with the Mets when everyone was hurt on the offense, and they had the Alar brothers or whatever everyone called them, but with Pilar and VR and everything like that, and they were just kind of like, they got lucky, right? They had passion and they were trying to fight for at bats and everything like that. So they were doing well and they're capitalizing on their time. But ultimately, in a long season, that's the difference between baseball and every other sport, is talent wins out, right? And I'm not saying that McGill or Carrasco or Walker aren't talented. God knows they are. But case in point last year, right? It's just how it is with pitching in baseball. So you follow the trends of what they've done in their careers. And Carrasco has had all the talent in the world, but Carrasco is always injured. Sometimes it's like things completely out of his control. I believe he had cancer and everything like that. But a lot of times it's just like, these are nagging issues that he has. Taijuan Walker's like that too. And I just don't trust McGill and Peterson. They're not household names for a reason, right? This right. Screams Alar brothers to me.
Yeah, I think it's very fair on the Peterson front for sure. The McGill front, yes, it is fair in the sense that last year, for example, his first couple starts were electric, and then he kind of fell down to earth. This year, his stuff is better. Like, his stuff's better. He seems more commanding, and now every start he makes, these 5 starts, starts 6 through 10, the ones that maybe start to fall back to earth. There's more and more film on him. There's more and more tendencies out on him. This is where we're going to see if he could be that dude. And I'd put more money on McGill being a top 3 guy in the rotation than I would Peterson, than I would Carrasco, than I even would Taijuan Walker. I think there's a real chance that he can be one of the guys you lean on in this rotation. And then what they really need is luck. They need some luck when undoubtedly one of these guys falls down to earth or gets hurt. If DeGrom comes back in that same general time frame, game changer, right? If all of a sudden Peterson's getting shelled and Carrasco's banged up, if DeGrom's back in that couple weeks stretch right there, it really does heal a lot of wounds. And you're 100% right. Like, all these moments where the others, right? Yeah, that's a with basketball, right? Yeah, you get your three. What are the others doing? Are they hitting shots? Are they finishing possessions? Are they rebounding? The others for the Mets are McGill, Peterson, Carrasco right now. I think McGill can become a top 3. The other 2, we'll see what happens. And Bassett, there's not much to say other than he's a shover. Like, he's going to get out there. He's going to get out there and compete. He won't be the best pitcher in the league. He will probably be, border all-star, who knows, like give or take, maybe close, maybe not, depending on how many other guys probably make it from the Mets. He's going to shove. He's going to compete. He's probably going to eat innings. I think you trust him. I do think McGill can enter those ranks. And in regards to, I have one more question for you. In regards to the bullpen, which has been mostly good, a couple iffy spots here and there, as most bullpens go through. But Edwin Diaz specifically, is there a narrative change with Edwin? He was very good last year, and people were pretty skeptical. He's been very good again this year. I know he has, I think, 2 blown saves, but he's been very good in general. Are you noticing a vibe change with people around baseball and Mets fans all of a sudden trusting Edwin Diaz? And is that fair? Is that reasonable?
It's a dangerous game, is all I'm
Is it
saying.
a dangerous game?
Yeah. So I'm getting a lot of feedback. I keep hearing myself. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous game, but I mean, long are the days of having a Mariano Rivera where you ultimately trust them. Look at the best closers in baseball. You could consider Aroldis Chapman one of the best closers in baseball until you watch him every day and you want to blow your brains out every time he comes into pitch. You know, you look at Kenley Jansen or, you know, around the league, wherever you want to go, there's always, and they don't last long, right? So Edwin Diaz has been a closer for like 5 years now. That's really good, and he's getting better. He's more comfortable with the team. You could probably say that the Mets won the trade with the Mariners just because of Edwin Diaz alone, because even without Cano, Kalenic probably looks like he sucks, at least at this point in his career and everything like that. So I don't know. Edwin Diaz has been good. It helps when you have a good coach that puts him in the right situations, right? And I know what you'll say, like a closer, it's the same situation every time. But I don't know, getting the right setup guys in there, getting the insurance runs that you have for them, making sure that they're not coming in with the most tenuous of leads or anything like that, that they're in a position to succeed. So, you know, pitchers thrive on that, knowing that their lead is going to be what they're going to have and you know, to work with it and all that stuff. So I don't know. I definitely could see it. I am seeing a narrative change out there. I would be wary, because I would be wary with any closer that's like considered lights out or anything like that, because it doesn't exist anymore. Not with the way baseball is played anymore with offense.
One more point on that, because we're going to close off on the baseball talk here. In regards to, oh yeah, you just put the closer in the same situation all the time. It's not always that clean cut, right? Like, he has 5 saves right now. He's been in 11 games, and yeah, he blew. I think I'm not. I can't see it on Baseball Reference, but I think he's blown 2 saves this year, which not great, but whatever. He's been in games where it's not a save situation. And are there other managers who would say, "Oh, let's save Edwin for tomorrow's save, even though we're up 5 right now, and he's kind of scheduled to pitch, and why don't we just get him some work? Let's build the confidence," right? Like, those things do matter. And we haven't talked about Buck Showalter, but I'll leave it as Buck Showalter is one of those dudes who inspires confidence. It's pretty hard to argue that at this point. The way he stepped out of the dugout for his team with all the hit by pitch stuff that happened over the first couple weeks of the season, the way he stands up for his guys, and the way that these guys respond to him, even Lindor and Escobar messing with Buck when he comes out to make
pranks.
a pitch. Yeah, like they're touching his heel and doing the type of stuff that Buck is known for, to bring teams together, to pull the right strings, to not be blind to analytics and analytics only. And that's what we're getting. So I think if this is a Mets and Yankees love fest to this point, Alec, do you have any other last words for baseball before we say goodbye on this front?
No, it's just nice to have like actual legitimate banter with my Mets fans, and I'm sure they feel the same thing about the Yankees fans, even though most people probably wouldn't want to admit it. But it's good when both teams are good, because it's fun to have conversations, and New York's a baseball town, so it's fun.
Yeah, and how cool is it that 2 completely different offenses are the 2 best offenses in the league to this point? Like, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is, like, I'm curious once the rest of the divisions figure things out, because the Yankees have been in first place pretty much the entire year, even before they went on this tear, which with being a game over 500. Let's see what happens when the Phillies and the Braves figure things, and the Marlins. I don't know, are they good or are they not good? I have no idea what's going on over there. And then, you know, the Red Sox won't be 12 games under 500 at the end of the year, but they may not be division leaders, but you know that the Rays are going to be better than they are right now. And you have no idea what the Blue Jays. So I'm just curious, because right now it looks like the only good division in baseball is the NL West. So very curious to see when things kind of start to kick the groove back up and how these teams respond.
Yeah, I look forward to this conversation in another week or two so we can continue to talk it up and debate, and hopefully we'll have Drew back for that one where, the angst that's been existing in the Designated Hitters group chat can come to life on the Subway Sports Talk podcast. So we're not done yet. We're here to talk some Marvel. We're going off the rails. We're talking Moon Knight. We're going to sprinkle in some Doctor Strange predictions. So if you're on the podcast, just hang tight. You don't have to do anything. We're coming at you. But if you're on YouTube, next video, don't forget, if you're a Marvel guy, this will be a lot of fun. So, Al, stay tuned.